The air on Mustafar was thick with the corrosive stench of sulfur and the ozone burn of clashing lightsabers. Anakin Skywalker, his body a conduit for a pain so profound it had curdled into rage, pressed his attack. Before him stood Obi-Wan Kenobi, not as a master, but as an obstacle, the final obstacle to a future he had been promised. "You will not take her from me!" Anakin's voice was a raw, synthetic thing, scraping from a throat too full of fire. He drove Obi-Wan back toward the lava river, the heat blistering, the air shimmering. Obi-Wan parried, his defense a masterpiece of Sorisu, but he was tiring. Anakin could feel it. He could feel the victory, the final crushing proof of his new power. He raised his saber for a killing blow, a move of pure, arrogant dominance. And in that suspended second, he saw it. Not with his eyes, but in the Force. A future. It was not the vision Sidious had painted, of him and Padme ruling a galaxy, bringing order through strength. This was a flash of pure, unadulterated horror. Himself, encased in a prison of black armor, a slave to a rasping mechanical breath. Padme, her life force, not saved, but extinguished, her eyes empty of the love that had been his anchor, and a cry, the desperate, lonely cry of a child he would never know. It was not a premonition, it was a truth. The dark side had lied. The certainty of it was an ice-cold dagger in his heart, freezing the fire of his fury. The power that had felt so immense, so liberating, revealed itself as a chain. He saw the manipulative hand of Sidious in every step, every whispered doubt, every promise. His lightsaber wavered. Obi-Wan, sensing the shift, held his stance, confusion etched on his weary face. Anakin, the name, his true name, spoken not in hatred but in desperate hope, was the key. The monstrous persona of Vader shattered. Anakin Skywalker deactivated his lightsaber. The crimson blade vanished with a sharp hiss, leaving only the orange glow of the planet. He dropped to his knees on the black sand, not in submission to Obi-Wan, but in surrender to the devastating truth. The mechanical hand, the symbol of his first failure, the instrument of his massacre at the temple, clenched into a futile fist. "He lied to me," Anakin whispered, the words barely audible over the planet's rumble. It was all a lie. Obi-Wan stood frozen, his own blue blade still humming, a hair's breadth from Anakin's undefended neck. He saw the yellow fade from his former Padawan's eyes, replaced by a stormy, familiar blue, swimming in a pain more profound than any physical wound. Slowly, with a tremor of his own, Obi-Wan deactivated his weapon. The silence that followed was heavier than the battle. The war for Anakin's soul was over. The war for the galaxy had just begun. Anakin's head snapped up. The clones, Order 66. He fumbled for the comlink on his belt, his movements frantic. His connection to the Force, no longer clouded by darkness, screamed with a new alarm. He could feel the flicker of intent across the galaxy, a switch about to be thrown. He opened a channel to the one man in the 501st he trusted implicitly. "Rex, Captain, do you read me?" The response was crackled, distorted by Mustafar's atmosphere. "General, the mission on the Separatist leaders is..." "Listen to me, Rex. The Chancellor is a Sith Lord. He's about to issue an order to the army. Execute Order 66. It's a command to kill all Jedi. You must not comply." A long, static pause. "General, the protocol is mandatory. The chips..." Rex's voice was strained, as if fighting himself. "Find Commander Cody. Find any captain you trust. Tell them the order is a Sith deception. You must protect the Jedi, not kill them. The Chancellor is the enemy. Do you understand? This is a direct order from your general." Another pause, shorter this time. A decision made. "Understood, sir. We'll hold the line. What about the Chancellor?" Anakin looked at Obi-Wan, a grim resolve settling on his features. "We're handling it." The countermand was not universal. Across the galaxy, chaos erupted. On distant worlds, some clone battalions, their inhibitor chips overriding years of camaraderie, turned their guns on their Jedi generals. Others, like the 501st and elements of the 212th, who received the warning, found themselves in a brutal, confused firefight against their own brothers. Venators became battlegrounds, loyalists against programmed battalions. It was not a clean Jedi purge. It was a catastrophic civil war within the Grand Army of the Republic. Back on Coruscant, the Sith Lord felt the shift in the Force. The glorious, promised darkness of his new apprentice had flickered, then changed. A light, weak but defiant, had been rekindled on Mustafar. His grand design was unraveling. His hollow projector flickered. The benign mask of Chancellor Palpatine melted away, replaced by the ghastly, furious visage of Darth Sidious. "Lord Vader, the time for games is over. Return to me. Together, we will still salvage this." Anakin stood, facing the image of his deceiver. "There is no Lord Vader. You looked into the future, Sidious. Did you see this?" The Sith Lord's face contorted in pure, undiluted hatred. "Then you will die a fool's death," he snarled, but the transmission cut out. The real battle was now for the heart of the Republic. The following days were a blur of desperate action. Anakin and Obi-Wan, their bond fractured but their purpose painfully aligned, returned to a Coruscant in chaos. The Senate was in an uproar, fed lies by Sidious about a Jedi rebellion. But the truth, spread by Anakin, Ahsoka Tano, who had been investigating the conspiracy, and the loyalist clones, began to fracture the government. They found Padme alive. She had given birth to twins, Luke and Leia, in a hidden medical facility under the protection of Captain Rex and a handful of his most trusted troopers. The reunion was not one of joy, but of tears, trauma, and a fragile, terrifying hope. Anakin held his children, their innocent faces a searing reminder of the future he had almost destroyed. The Jedi Order was shattered. Many were dead, cut down in the initial wave of Order 66. But many more had been saved by the fractured, confused response of the clones and the warnings sent out by Anakin and the Loyalists. They gathered, not in the temple, but in secret, led by a weary Yoda and a determined Obi-Wan. They were no longer an army. They were a rebellion. The final confrontation was not in a throne room before an enslaved galaxy, but in the heart of the Senate itself. Sidious, cornered but far from powerless, unleashed his full fury. Lightning, blue and evil, arced across the chamber, not at the Jedi, but at the senators themselves, a display of raw power meant to terrorize. Anakin did not fight with anger. He fought as a protector. He stood before the lightning, his lightsaber a blazing shield, absorbing the hatred meant for the innocent. He was not the chosen one bringing balance by destroying the Sith in darkness, but by defending the light in front of the entire galaxy. The spectacle was broadcast, exposing the monster behind the politician. It was not a single hero who defeated him. It was the combined effort of a redeemed Anakin, a steadfast Obi-Wan, a nimble Yoda, and the piercing blaster fire of Captain Rex that finally overwhelmed the Sith Lord. In the aftermath, the Republic, though saved, was a wounded beast. The Jedi Order, its arrogance and blindness laid bare by one of its own, began a painful, centuries-long process of reformation. They learned to be guardians again, not generals. Anakin Skywalker never returned to the Jedi Temple as a master. The weight of his actions, the lives he had taken as Vader, was a burden he would carry every day. The mechanical limbs were a constant painful reminder. He would wake in the night, screaming from visions of the darkness he had embraced, but then a small hand would pat his face, or a coo would sound from a nearby crib. He would look at Luke's fearless curiosity, Leia's fierce determination, and Padme's forgiving, though forever changed, eyes. The galaxy knew him as a hero, the man who saved the Republic from the Sith. But his children didn't need a hero. They needed a father. And for the first time since he was a little boy on Tatooine, Anakin Skywalker was free. He built a life not of prophecy, but of family. The Force around him and within him was finally, truly at peace.